Okay, so today we're going to do Santa Claus, and we're going to look through the oldest text and imagery that we have. The oldest would be the I-Ching, and we're going to see if we can find Santa Claus. We're looking for a lot of components. So when we're looking at Santa Claus, we've got a guy with a white beard in the traditional American type Santa Claus that we have. I think it's what I found is it's pretty well developed. It's much more of a good spiritual practice than the the Christian uh, handling of Christmas, which I see to be basically an obfuscation of funds. It's a financial decision for them, and it's also because they start that tax year, right? That's all from them. and But the top left image is the Hindu decan from 500 CE, and he's got a white beard. He's got chains. He's got a load on his back, and he has a white ball on his head, which is very intriguing. Got some kind of it looks like his darker side has those non-symmetrical horns kind of thing. He's got white gloves or white hands, which is kind of interesting. And but the most interesting thing is the chain goes up into the sky, and when I first saw that, I said, well, that's a very, that's definitely symbolizing some kind of higher control over a very strong, powerful energy. Um, Basically, I think the uh, church kind of knows that they just basically jumped on the winter solstice and planted their stuff there. Originally, the feast of the Queenship of Mary was celebrated in May because that gives you an eight to 9 month term for the birth, right? And then they moved it to Virgin Decan, so I covered that in Pious Fraud 1 because it's kind of an important point. The time of the Virgin doesn't mesh with anything else except the decans. And what I'm saying, the holiday that we celebrate at the winter solstice, that a lot of people call Christmas, is really just a holiday at the winter solstice, and it really encompasses all the facets of the decan, the 10-day time period of December 21st to the 31st in all cultures, and we're gonna see that. So a lot of guys, some of these foreign countries celebrate. They have Krampus with the chains, and it's very accurate because you can have problems with this kind of stuff at this time of year. So you always keep an eye out for that. When you have certain conditions, you will have violence, usually males, right? Which is not uncommon, but it's a male, very strong male energy. Has to be, you have to keep an eye on it. So Christmas is designed to rein in the over powering patriarchy. That's what it's for. That's actually what it's supposed to be. This is the time when you put those guys in check and you say, hey, it's time to you're going to make a sacrifice. You're going to provide these people with so the kids need toys for the winter. They're all crammed in the house now. It's cold. You got to, unless you live in the tropics, but these kids need something to do. You got to straighten out your house, and really it's a straightening out of the male energy right before the female energy takes over. Second decan of Capricorn is definitely highly feminine, and they are the keepers of the well, or the managers of the finance, and that's why, like I said, the Christians took this holiday over so that they could get a big windfall of money, and they cut the tax year off right there, so that it would be a tax exempt charitable contribution that everybody wants to do right at the last thing. And Boy, they really rake it in on this holiday. And the general energy of the decan is designed to be one of giving and sacrifice, and in specifically with a mind to the spiritual being. So Santa Claus brings the presents. We all know who buys them. We all know who wraps them up. And but we don't take any credit for that. The parents don't take any credit. The credit is given to the invisible man, Santa Claus. He's not God. He's not any of these things. It's just this guy. And he lives up in the North Pole. I don't know really why. I mean, it's kind of a desolate place. Nobody wants to live there. He never brings his wife with him. He comes alone or with an elf or two, and he has 8 reindeer. He's got a metal sleigh. He's bringing presents and toys, and he's just doing it out of the goodness of his heart, isn't he? So that's the true spirit of the holiday. That's the true spirit of the decan, and I think we're going to be able to prove that. We're going to prove this. So there's what's his name there? He played in Bad Santa, and it's actually a great depiction, but that's not why I picked this photo. But that movie actually is this guy whose principles needed to be straightened out, and he ends up doing it, and he wears the Santa outfit in the process. And so it's a very accurate portrayal of the decan. The intention of the decan is to straighten out these guys who might be out of control. But I wanted to bring attention to the ball, because that's a very interesting part of the Santa outfit, and it's contained in this image that's 1,500 years old and I think it was done in a cave with charcoal, but there was a whole set of them. They're all done the same way, so they're very accurate, and the description is also very intriguing, in that it says a hairy man, right? And then it goes on with a frightful face and fangs like a sea monster, but has a body similar to that of a boar. So this is a fat, right? A big, heavy dude. So that's Santa Claus. He's supposed to be roly-poly. He's always eating sugar and cookies and milk and stuff, and he gets big and fat. So, and he's got chains. So that's in the descriptor, and I find that very intriguing as well. So, but that ball on the head, we're going to find out where that goes. So this is a snapshot from my correlated index that I have on my website, and it didn't take long to correlate these. It did take a while to go back and look and examine all of these intricacies. Fairly easy to correlate because all these systems are very, intentionally designed to follow the decans, including Genesis, very intentional. So they're not real hard to correlate, and the only differences in them generally are the forewarning decans, which are always listed at the end. So I have an asterisk with those if you go to the index page if you're interested. But I just wanted to show that in the on the line for rope, which is the first decan of Capricorn, we're looking at number 47 of the I-Ching, which would be number 27 in the order of the decans, because the first 20 I-Chings are the 20 days. We're looking at number 28 in the order of occurrence in the Hindu, because they do not list the forewarning decans at the end. We're looking at number 26 in Mt Fuji, because they do list the 4 at the end. We're looking at the 10 of Pentacles in the Tarot. We're looking at number 26 of Genesis. Okay. So in number 47, it's actually called Kwan. We immediately are met with all kinds of terminology that becomes very familiar when you are examining these correlations. We've got the stump of a tree. He's being straightened, which is being straightened means he's being corrected. His behavior is being, his principles are being corrected, is what this is really all about. He's got red knee covers. this is interesting. And they make a very distinctive uh, differentiation between the scarlet apparel that some of the nobles wear in Chinese society back then, but they're talking about, no, that's not that. These are just this guy. This is just for this time period. There's red knee covers of the ruler, which is the hexagram. He enters his palace and does not see his wife. That's another interesting thing. The stories about this, you don't see the wife. There's something going on with that. She's just missing. It's just him. We're just dealing with this dude right now. Number 4 is straightened by a carriage adorned with metal in front of him. So that's pretty interesting. So his principles are being straightened by a carriage, and we'll get into that explanation in the notes. And then it will be well for him to be sincere in sacrificing to spiritual beings. So, in other words, they want this type of sincerity. Like, you need to have this sincerity, but they're not necessarily saying that that's what he's doing. He's not sacrificing to spiritual beings, but at the same time, it's kind of like that. You need to have that type of sincerity. And that's what we do when we give gifts and things like this. The other thing is bound with creepers. I take those, I looked at that and I said, well, bound with creepers. What is a creeper? I don't know, but it could go with the chains very nicely. And or in a high and dangerous position, saying, well, if I move, I don't know, and he has to be careful. In other words, he has to be careful, but either way, if he goes forward and he does this correction or this straightening, he's going to be fine. So, so there's the general descriptor, or the 6 lines of the hexagram, and in the notes, it clarifies that the character Kwan, this hexagram, actually presents us with the picture of a tree within an enclosure. And that means you brought a tree, right? You brought this tree into a structure, a plant. So there's your tree, your holiday tree. We bring the tree in, has nothing to do with the Bible. And everybody says, well, what does this have to do? It doesn't have anything to do with it. This has to do with the decan, the energy. This is what's going on this time of year. This is not a abnormal compulsion. This is proper. So you've got a tree in an enclosure, and then you've got this idea of the straightening, but in their principles, not in their estates or their persons, but in their principles, which are denied development. So that's another aspect of the holiday, isn't it? Then we have the red or vermilion knee covers, and it makes that specific mention about this is very different from the other scarlet ones. We're talking about red or vermilion knee covers. He's not a noble. This guy is just, for whatever reason, this guy's wearing red. And I thought, well, that's really, really intriguing, right? Like, and now you've got my attention. We're talking about red. We're straightening our principle. And then again, it mentions you need to do this work as if you're sacrificing to spiritual beings. As if you are, but not, that you are, but as if you are. And then it says, very interestingly, if you keep quiet, all will be well. So that's interesting, because that's another component of Christmas. Like, right, like people yell at the kid, you got to be quiet or Santa Claus won't come, or you got to be quiet because, your father's going to be home, This is about the straightening of the patriarchal or the paternal energies at this time of this season. This is what this decan composes. It's the male dominated first decan of Capricorn. We're dealing with a strong male energy here. We got to straighten it out. We got to make sure his principles are in order here. Then, very interestingly, it says there's the assistance that he's getting in line 4 is given dilatorily. And I thought, wow, dilatorily. And yeah, it's delayed. So this assistance, there's a problem with the assistance. It's delayed. And the way this is overridden, the way he gets around this, is with a chariot of metal. Now, isn't that interesting? And we're talking, this stuff was pretty much written before what people say is the advent of the Iron Age, for sure. So, uh, you know, but a chariot of metal, that's what Santa Claus has, right? So, uh, that's what he's doing. That's how he gets around. Like, how does he get all these toys to all these kids? Well, he's got this chariot of metal. I mean, that's right in the story. That's a primary component of the story. So there's the I-Ching. We'll keep going. This is Hokusai, and in the 36 views of Mt Fuji, this is the first decan Capricorn, and there's very recognizable is the large pack, right, with the log or whatever, the way they're carrying it. Very unique imagery in the 36 views. But there it is. It's a very heavy pack. These guys are coming and going. The location is Hodogaya on the Tokaido. Don't quote me on the pronunciation. And that place was a rest station on the way to a larger place of commerce. So that's pretty much the way it rolls in the decans too. The second decan of Capricorn is that larger place of commerce. This is who really has a hold of the all the goods, right? She maintains the well, and in Chinese culture, the well is symbolic of the goods and the wealth of the entire community. So that's what that location is. And then he has 8 trees, which I thought was very specific and very intentional. There's 4 pairs of 2. And when we get to, when we're talking about 8 reindeer, it's all going to get tied together, but I'm just saying there's 8 trees, and it's very specific. It's a specific number, and there's a specific reason. So we're even talking about verification of the number of the reindeer, why it flies through the sky, because the chariot of metal is helping him overcome this delay, and, this whole 9 yards, it's all in there. Now, when we get to the ball on the head, I go back through the decans because it's specific to this set of drawings. So I went back through and I thought, well, is there anybody else who's got this ball on their head, or is there what other symbolic reference I could find to it, just to try to get an idea of what it was all about. It's kind of one of these mysterious things, but really your Santa outfit is not complete without that ball. It's kind of a weird thing, and so I pay attention to that. It's bizarre. Well, there's one other guy, and guess what he does? This is the 3rd decan of Libra. This is Hermes or Thoth, and I don't care what anybody else told you. That I'll prove that too, but very simply, it's very, very, that's like way easier than this. This actually has way more components to it than trying to prove that. But what this decan is doing at the scales is writing everything down in stone. He's keeping the list, okay? And what's he doing? What are we doing in Libra? We're finding out if people are good or bad, aren't we? That's what we're doing. So when he's checking the list and he's checking it twice to make sure who's naughty and nice, he's got a telepathic or a GPS locator beacon coming from the cardinal sign of air. The 3rd decan of Libra has a white ball that matches the white ball on the head of the decan of Santa Claus, and he's definitely the decan where they're making the list, they're checking it twice, and they're finding out who's naughty and nice. And then now Santa Claus knows. That's how he knows, right? He wasn't doing that. He was too busy making toys and eating stuff. He's been eating. That's all he does. He eats. So, and he doesn't talk a lot, Santa Claus also. If you notice, if you go back, you'll see that in the descriptor of the I-Ching, it talks about his words not being made good. If he's quiet, that would be great. So all he says, Santa Claus doesn't give speeches. He says one thing, ho, 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 right? That's all he says. He never talks, you know. You don't have Santa Claus come and give a commencement address, right? Santa Claus doesn't talk. Doesn't say nothing. Just does his job and get out of there. So there's the Ten of Pentacles, and it's definitely, the cardinal signs are all the 10, 8, 9 of the four elements, and in the earth element, it is the first decan of Capricorn is number 10. So I list the others just to show you that's how the Lesser Tarot works out. They had knowledge. I think it matches the Hindu stuff, I think, because if people go back and look at the history again, I've mentioned this before, Gandhi was present in Britain or England during the time when this revival of ancient knowledge was going on with these groups that ultimately led to the Golden Dawn that hired Pamela Coleman Smith, who did these drawings, and they kind of dictated, what they wanted in them. So it's not real hard to correlate the decans and the 20 days in the tarot, and there's a lot of confusion about that. Everybody wants to say this is. I don't care what they want to say about any of the other cards. I only talk about the set of images that Pamela Coleman Smith did. She did that. They had some knowledge there. It wasn't just all willy-nilly. There's definitely knowledge there, and it's easy to correlate. It's not great. It's definitely not as good as like the I-Ching, the Hindu, or even Genesis, really, because Genesis was very intentionally the decans, but or Hokusai. But it's it's admissible, And there's the chain going up. It's like a black and white, kind of thing going up there. Doesn't, but I call it the chain. There's the chain going up out of the sky. There's the guy with the white beard, the white hair. He's petting the dog. He's not being mean to it. There's the little kid. There's the wife, and the husband has his back, right, to him. They just show the back of the husband, but they show the face of the women and the children. So this is the consideration that's being given here. It's a very family-friendly scene, and it's definitely, there's a lot going on the back of the robe or chair or whatever he's got there, but I just look for those. Look pretty basic. Either way, there it is. So in Genesis, chapter 26 is rope decan, and we're going to go to Gerar. In Gerar, there's something that always happens in Gerar, and it starts in Genesis 20, but if you look, it's like when Abraham takes his wife and they go to Gerar, and they just walk in there and say, oh yeah, hey, this is my sister, and then they just take her, and that's it. Now Abraham doesn't have his wife. So he went to the palace, he doesn't have his wife, right? So in 26, of course, we're going to do this again. In Genesis 20, they're talking about dolphin decan, because these are the travels of the female. So really, it's more about Sarah in Genesis 20 and these wells than it is in 26. We're going to deal with these wells again, because the dry well is the first decan of Capricorn, and the beautiful well that has all the water, that's the second decan, and this is the female is in charge. But in this decan, it's the wife goes missing. So in this one, Isaac and Rebekah go in here, and oh, there's Rebekah, and he does the same thing. They're like, yeah, that's my sister. It's like, okay, and they take her, and then he ends up with a whole bunch of stuff, doesn't he? He ends up with a bunch of stuff, and they talk about the wells, which his father. See, they go back and revisit that story all the way back to the last time they were in Gerar. So what I'm telling you is Gerar is rope decan, because all these decans had locations, right? And you can definitely correlate those by going through the chapters if you know the decans and the days, because you got to look at that too. But you can correlate these places, and this one's real easy because the same exact thing happens. There's a dry well, there's no wife, and there's lots of goodies, and we're talking about wells. And yeah, so when Santa Claus comes, he brings the presents. How does he get in the house? He can't break and enter. He can't kick in a window. He can't kick in your door. He comes down your chimney. No real explanation other than the fact that, well, he's able to make himself really super small, and that's how he does it, even though the gifts won't even fit up in there. He makes those really small, too. It's all magic. Don't worry about it. But the bottom line is the chimney is a lot like the dry well. And so I find that to be, it's good symbology. It's a good crossover. It works to adopt the chimney as how he gets in. Because, kids are going to ask these questions. Right? Well, I don't know. I think you're lying. Like, how'd this happen, and then there's more of these images of Krampus, which I'm showing because the chains and the jingle bells are really pretty much the same thing, and you'll see them combined sometimes. So, and there's a brutality that can come from a unprincipled paternal energy, and so that's the whole reason for it. Is what we're really doing when we're coming into this holiday season is we're taking the mother's influence and the concern of the children, and we're going to address this right now. And you're going to have to, if you're a husband, you've got to straighten up. You've got to make all this happen. It's a very busy season. You're going to have to go, conduct some commerce. You're going to have to get this tree in the enclosure. You're going to have to, explain to the children that there's this guy coming, and he's got a metal sleigh, and he's got 8 reindeer, and he's bringing presents, and you're going to have to be quiet, and you're going to have to be good, and all these things, right? And we're going to have to put out an offering. We're going to make an offering. So, yeah, we're going to make an offering, and everybody's going to be quiet, not even the mouse. The mouse isn't even going to say anything because it's not going to come unless it's quiet. You'll do well if you're quiet, right? And that's right in the I-Ching. Everything in these images, well, except for the mouse, but pretty much, right in the I-Ching. So that's kind of what I see. Now, the question is, if you went to the mall and you gave the children an option, which, what kind of holiday do you want to have this year? I'm pretty sure the reason why Santa Claus wins and why they had to co-opt this thing very skillfully is because it is a season of giving, and it is a season of, sacrificing of yourself, but the intention is not to sacrifice to the spiritual beings. It's to, as if you were, and that's kind of the way it feels too. If you really, go deep and try to feel it, that's what you're going to feel. This is not a time of year to sacrifice to the spiritual beings. It's the time to conduct yourself and straighten the principles of the father, the paternal energy of the house. Straighten this guy out, and get him to do the right thing, because in the second decan, mom's taken over for sure. And we've got to get these guys straightened out. Make sure they appreciate the house and the children and get everything in order there. Has nothing to do with the torture or the birth of any of that, right? That human sacrifice stuff. I don't think it has anything to do with that. I think they just co-opted it because this is their biggest fundraising of the year, and they knew this energy existed, and they co-opted it, and they said, whoa, we got to get that one, look at this. And so they jumped on that and said, yeah, this is when he was born. They did that. It's a financial decision. And then the starting of the new year is also a financial decision, which I can prove completely separately from any of this. But boy, when you look at the two together, like, why did they start the year on January 1st? It's a Roman Catholic thing. That's who designed it. I'm going to tell you, it was a strictly financial decision that only benefits them. Doesn't benefit other people. That is not when you should start your year. That is not the time to end the fiscal tax year. No, I wouldn't do that. It's very, in fact, it's very unwise, and it's actually more accurate to say Santa Claus is real than it is to say, well, this guy was born here. I mean, it's actually way more real to talk about Santa Claus. So, yeah, that's his real beard kid. Let go of that thing. Hey, so then the next decan, I just wanted to bring this up because this is where it finishes it off and gives you this reason why there's 8 reindeer. The next decan after Kwan is Zing, and Zing talks about the 9 divisions of the land, right, of a certain system, a state, whatever, a country. It's all, pretty symbolic, but it's the symbol of the well, okay? But this is not a dry well, but Zing is actually the symbol of a well, and Kwan is actually the symbol of a tree in an enclosure, okay? So these are these descriptors are derived from interpreting and elucidating these energies that permeate our lives, right? That's what these are. And so Zing is the symbol of the well. So, and there's 9 divisions, but there's one portion belongs to the government, and that belongs to the people. So that's the joint property of all the occupants is in the 9 divisions. That would be the back of the sleigh. And then the 8 reindeer are the joint labor of the 8 families, right, that are settled on the other divisions. So that's in symbolic and ancient, the holistic application of spiritual practices into a society are much more concerned with the equitable distribution of wealth and the equitable participation by the occupants. Okay, it's not communism. There's right. It's you get what you work for in that system. You can design it any way you want from there. It's all symbolic. So don't really get into the politics of how to go around it, but in the spiritual holistic applications of these energies, they give you the guidelines and say, this is a good way to design it. And I'm not advocating the Chinese government. I'm just telling you, all these ancient systems kind of agree, as you can see. They kind of see what's going on, and everything's designed around reality, the energies that permeate us that we don't pay much attention to. And in speaking about the well, I know if somebody is a student of Christianity or they understand the stories in the book of Genesis, they're all, well, yeah, that's the biggest story in there is when Joseph gets thrown down the well. Well, yes, and that is one of the very simple points that I make when I talk about the decans in Genesis, because they end the first set, all 36 decans, goes to chapter 36. than what happens in chapter 37. In chapter 37, we're going to start a whole new story that goes for 14 chapters. And it begins with Joseph, who is the archetype of the keeper of the well of Zing hexagram. It should be a woman, but it's not. They're going to use a paternal because these ancient cultures, even in the I-Ching, everybody knows it's a feminine energy, but they're going to say it's a they're going to try to eliminate the feminine principle from power back then. So, but in chapter 37, that's when Joseph gets thrown down the well, in the dry well, and then the whole thing continues all the way around to chapter 14, where it's the the culmination of the reunion of the brothers from that event, right? So it really is a short 14 chapter story about that archetype of Zing. That's the story of Joseph. They decided, well, let's elucidate this story because this is the keeper of the well. So we're gonna tell this whole story about how this works, right? And that's exactly what they do, and it's very interesting. But that's what happens. It's a whole new story in chapter 37. So just wanted to point that out. Okay. All right. I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. There it is. We got all the components. 8 reindeer. There's the metal carriage. He's got the white beard, the ball, the white gloves. No wife, right? The wife's not there. Never see the wife in the sleigh. No. Oh yeah, the word sleigh. I thought that's interesting because Santa has a twin, right? What does he do? He beats the bad kids and throws them in the river. Well, the word sleigh is S in English, SLEIGH, but the word slay is SLAY, means to die, right? So these terms are literally, in our language, kind of paired together, right? One is death, the other one is Santa Claus is coming. So, yeah, so there you go. Okay, thanks. Have a good day.